We've just passed through the mechanical part of this process we've discussed procedures and the philosophy behind those concepts. We've spent considerable time developing our model for maximum success. Let's review it. The foundation at the bottom, being open to learning, is to provide a strong base for success. Application surrounds everything, is linked to everything. Unless we do some things, words and promises are just talk. The first pillar was focus, helping us to look comprehensively at what we would like to see as the underlying motivation for what we do. Next, we talked about process, a way to facilitate getting where we wanted to go. Well, the last pillar that supports maximum success is loaded with unlimited and too often untapped potential. It is also one of the most misunderstood, and it looks like this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and even this, and this. In the world of computers and robotics, the hardwired, complex, quick to complain, hard to understand hunk of blood and cells component, that human being in the chair over there, is your ticket to success or failure. People are the productive bottom line. Of course, this is not a new revelation. It is one, however, that many leaders believe they have in hand. Careful review suggests that they generally need to look more closely. While everything may appear to be going well, as I view groups in offices, retail stores, manufacturing, wholesale, education, if and wherever people work, I find more often than not there is considerable dissatisfaction among personnel. Many leaders do not see this problem, and unfortunately, this is the pattern too often present in this country. We believe there are no fires until we're standing in the ashes. Yes, the important part here is people. In the world of business and in society in many areas, the most important entity on the planet is not treated with the respect needed. People have the greatest potential of all entities on earth. Although they may not be as fast as computers or have memories that retain information into ready available forms, they can expand their abilities and their ideas and develop thoughts not imagined by other devices. We sometimes forget that everything on this earth that has been developed or discovered was always available to be developed or discovered, even way back. All of these have come through human beings, and to be important, they do not have to make some grand discovery, though. They provide services in many ways. As Tom Peters says, all of this highfalutin stuff about running companies boils down, surprise, surprise, to the folks who actually do the work. Ad copywriters, movie cameramen, nurses, technicians, teachers, and hotel housekeepers. People, they, them, always were important. They always were our important asset, as so many annual reports mindlessly proclaim, but now they really are important. Because of their importance, it is critical that we look carefully at how we treat people. In my experience, there is a belief that people are important. The problem is in application. You will continually hear me say that saying something doesn't make it so. In fact, if what we say and what we do demonstrate actually don't match, we create more of a problem than if we never say it. Being selected as the 9th employee of the month in a staff of 10 is hardly a positive event. Merely saying to them that they are the most important entity in your operation is not sufficient. You convince them that this message is true by application, by actions. So, how do we do this? First, if all you consider is profit, stock values, profit margins, quarterly increases, market share, and just plain old dollars, your operation will be centered around those areas. While these things are essential, I repeat, the real secret of success is the growth development, and optimization of people. So how do you develop enthusiastic, dedicated, and contributing people? Good question. First, review in your mind your experiences. Have your bosses always treated you fairly? Have you had ideas that would have helped improve some facet of work or even the total operation, but leadership was not all that interested? Has the head person, CEO, visited you at your workstation and asked for suggestions? Start there. How would you have liked to be treated and respected? Perhaps even now. Perhaps you feel unappreciated, that your ideas and recommendations are not really considered. One of the reasons we don't capitalize with people, and one of the reasons we even neglect them, is because they're complex, and each is an individual with variations. They are, to some degree, unpredictable, and then when you think you have them figured out, you discovered they've changed their thinking. Also, you have to remember that they have the capacity to accelerate or scuttle your operation more than any machine in the process. I mean, you can kick the copier if it doesn't work, and consequences can be a sore foot and a broken copier, or a little of each, but the copier does not really care. It won't work any better or any worse because of the kick. You can swear at it, yell at it, threaten it with elimination, a trip to the dump, or actually dump it in the junk. It still responds the way it responds. On the other side of the coin, you can promise a better toner, higher quality paper, more rest time, or a new paint job. Regardless, it will still operate the same way. Unfortunately, sometimes we treat people in that same manner. The difference, however, is that people will react to those treatments, and not all in the same way. And you may even get a different response one time when compared to another time. So we have many areas to cover that affect the success of your people, and ultimately the success of you. The key to remember is all of the machines, the best focus, the most carefully run process, and the finest materials will never have the potential of people. But unlike the copier, a simple frown, a few harsh words can mean the difference between the maximum output and merely working on the job. And it isn't always a conscious reaction. Each one of us works differently when we're positive and feeling enthusiastic than when we're depressed or unhappy or sick. Consider even caring practices can facilitate. Be the catalyst that inspires success, that results in dedication, that inspires new ideas, successful processes, effective procedures. Having spent many years working with situations where people are mistreated, I've personally found it extremely rewarding and unimaginably successful to turn that around and treat people as the sacred entities they are. In future programs, we'll cover important facets of characteristics of people that you need to be aware of to be most effective with them. We'll also work with you on finding and hiring the very best, methods of helping them grow, effective leadership procedures, best practices, positive and effective termination, dispute resolution, and negotiation. But before we leave this part of the program, let me just provide a beginning to answer the question that makes a difference in success with people. And that is attention. People appreciate being paid adequately, but more important, actually, each person wants to be recognized as an individual with a name who works somewhere in the organization that does something that's somewhat significant. Let me start with you leaders with a couple of examples. I had been asked to take the position of superintendent of schools of a district that was in extreme turmoil. In that kind of situation, my approach is always to do everything I can to show as many individuals as possible that I appreciate the work and recognize who they are. With nearly 1,000 employees, this wasn't an easy task, but it was an important one. In this endeavor, it is important to visit individuals in their workplace and not call them into your office. So I was visiting classes in a one of the high schools in the area, and I stepped into a social studies room. My preference was always to not significantly disturb the class. In this particular class, however, the teacher stopped teaching, and he invited me toward him. In front of the class, he shook my hand and said, "I have been a teacher in this district for 15 years," and he told the class, "This is the first time the superintendent of schools has ever visited one of my classes." He expressed appreciation. I faded into the woodwork, and the lesson continued. But that teacher must have mentioned that incident many times, and I later found out that usually this individual did many things to actually undercut the district administration. After my visit, he volunteered to help in any way he could. Leaders, pay attention to your people in a similar situation. Another situation, I was teaching a graduate class at a university and was told by a teacher in that class of an incident she had experienced. She was a teacher in an elementary school in the district, and the district was about 3 times larger than the one I've been talking about. She taught special needs children, and one day when she was in an elevator, she noticed the superintendent of schools. He did not know her, and because he had many teachers in the district. However, she approached him and introduced herself and shared about a program she was working with in her school. He said he was very impressed and promised to visit her class and see what she was doing. Of course, the teacher, realizing how much time was involved in the job he had as superintendent, thought, well, that was a nice gesture for him to say that, but she never anticipated seeing him in her class. But you guessed it. About a week after meeting the superintendent, this teacher was surprised to find him in her class. This lady who was in my class exhibited such positive feelings toward the superintendent and the district because she felt they really cared and that she was doing something important. Well, I have some ways that you can reach individuals in your organization, regardless of your position. And we'll continue next time on some of those so that you can see what you can do. But remember that third part of the model, people, is probably one of the most important in the whole thing. So remember that people are really important. And they are the real bottom line in how we operate. And you always have choices. See you next time.